Hello, my name is Jackie Jaramillo, and I'm in your sixth grade, and I'm interviewing.
Mr. McFayden.
Okay. My research paper is on autism. Autism awareness, how people need to become more aware of autism, parents, teachers, students, and just in general, you might have to work with somebody who has autism. Okay, throughout these questions that I'm going to ask you, anytime just feel free to talk about anything you feel that is necessary for my research.
Okay.
If I ask you a question on something, you're like, oh, I have something, a side note to that, just feel free to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. I know that you took a class. I'm going to ask you a little bit about that first. What kind of class did you attend?
I had to take a class for a certificate for autism to be added to my teaching credential. So because I took that class, I can teach a class of students with autism, or I can work with students with autism officially, according to the state. So that class was about what is autism, what are the behaviors, and um, how would you recognize and handle different behaviors, and then what are teaching techniques that you would use for different needs of a student as well.
Okay. What is your education level here?
I have a bachelor's in psychology, I have a master's in special education, and now I have this, so I have a teaching credential in special education. I have this one I'm going to put on an authorization for autism, and I'm also going to do another one for education and child development.
What do you know about
I know a lot more now I took the class. Uh, it has to do with sensory input and output. So it's not the same for every student. That's the one thing too. Or every person who has autism is not. They don't have the same effects. Like you wouldn't see the same. If I say you have autism and I have autism, it might show differently with you than it shows with me. It's called a spectrum disorder. So there's people on this side, which would be like the low end side, and there's people that are on the high end side, and everything in between. So a low end side might be somebody who has difficulty reading faces and voice tone and things like that. But besides that, they seem generally typical or normal compared to people of their same age and etc. So on the far side, they might have no ability to communicate at all in a regular speaking sense. Um, they use behaviors to communicate instead. So like if I really want something from you, I can take the phone and I can throw it on the ground. And you know I want your attention, right? So that's still communication, but it's kind of an extreme way. It's not a typical way of getting attention. Also, a lot of it has to do with the senses, and it could be different ones or it could be combinations. So a student might be very sensitive to touch, so much to the point that they can't wear certain types of clothing because it would irritate them so much. They're hypersensitive to touch. You can also have the opposite of that, like hyposensitive. So they can put their hand on something that's burning and not realize it's burning. Um,
hypo meaning no?
Hypo is like the opposite. So hyper's like elevated, and hypo is de-escalated, right? It's going lower. Um, so that's with lots of things. So you could have a class of autistic students, one of them who's very sensitive to sound, doesn't like a lot of noise, one of them who needs a lot of noise to stay focused in the same class.
That's what you mean by like they distractions, right?
Right, and it could be on the same thing. So that's why it would be difficult to teach a class that had only autistic students in it. And there are places here in their schools, like our Brecky Elementary has a classroom that's only autistic students. There are special schools. Here at Pacifica, the students are mixed in amongst the population. And also that's true because of the range. So there's some of the students on campus who have autism who are in general education classes. And most people don't know that they have anything that's wrong with them or anything that's different about them.
A question that is everybody's been asking me, and it's 50-50 on my research. On
Okay.
my survey that I have, it's 50-50. People don't know whether it's a disorder or disability.
A disorder or a disability? Hmm. How are you defining disorder and how are you defining disability?
Disorder meaning like the problem they have. Like, disability meaning that it keeps them from doing stuff.
Okay. Well, it can definitely be a disability because it can keep them from doing things. So again, it depends on the spectrum, where they are on the spectrum, really. Especially if you just take the communicative side, so that's always like kind of a hallmark of that. When kids are really little, if they're not following those milestones of like when they're supposed to be speaking and how many words they're supposed to be saying and making eye contact, those type of things, that's when parents should start to ask those questions about, was this something that they're just a little delayed or behind, or is this a real issue? Um, because kids can be taught to read facial language, to understand when voice goes up, that means one thing, when it goes down, that means something else. They can learn those things because they're not just going to get it. When you and I are little babies and we're growing up and we have a typical growth, we understand, we're learning the whole time what a smile means or what a frown means. And when someone has their voice like this, they're really mad. When someone's like this, they're really happy with us. And we understand that because we've learned that whole time. When we're not speaking, we're picking all that up. Whereas a student or a person with autism may not be picking that up and may never pick that up. They actually have to learn. When I see somebody do this, they're happy. So I'll talk to them like they're happy. I'll respond like they're happy. They don't really understand that somebody's happy. They just have learned it.
I've had friends of mine who took the survey. They tell me, "Oh, I met an autistic person. They're really mean. That they're always mad and they hit themselves and stuff." That's part of the reason we're saying that they can't communicate with the world, and that would make you angry. That would make me angry.
Yeah.
If nobody understood what I'm feeling.
It's when I took the class, that was the one thing that came through to me, was it has to be so frustrating to spend every day where you don't understand your surroundings and the people around you don't understand what you're trying to say or how you're trying to communicate either. So, and that's kind of, that's why it's important about setting routines also. There's a kind of routine that's followed. So once there's a routine, that gives at least some sense of order to how things are going to go. If every day you're coming in, you're not sure how to read people and how things work, and things are different every day, the way the class runs or the way you're doing things is different, then you're really, really thrown off. Whereas if every day you come in, you always sit in the same place, and you're always doing the same things in a certain order, at least gives it a routine. You know what to expect.
That's what they work with in those special classes, right? The special school they have?
And students can work with that with a speech-language pathologist. They can work with that with an individual counselor, so that they get to learn how to communicate in a more typical way. Like I said, if I want your attention, I can say, "Hey, Jackie," and you'll look at me, right? And another way I can get your attention is by taking your pen and throwing it. Right? It would still work, you know? And that's the thing. Language is communication is a function. It has to have a function. And you're just looking for a result when you communicate. So there's lots of ways to do that. And typically we learn the proper way or the right way to get attention and to get our needs met and all those things. There's plenty of ways to do that in a wrong way too. Or in a way that's not typical. In a way that people say, "Oh, they're being mean," or they're always doing this or that. I mean, literally, you can have someone with autism who doesn't even understand that someone else is upset. They don't get it. They don't get it in the voice tone. They don't get it in the face. Stuff like that. But again, when I'm saying that too, that's a generalization. There will be some students who get things more. There'll be some who don't get it at all. It's very, very wide, the range too. So you really can't say an autistic person's going to be like this.
Yeah.
And except for, you can say there will be a communication issue of some sort, and usually it has to do with that body language and voice tone and changes in voice, and all those proxemics it's called. Um, and there'll be something that's a sense thing as well, usually associated. So either touch or smell or singing or things like that, whether they're hyper or they're hypo. So an example was given of the fluorescent lights like in here. We, with our typical senses and our ability also to focus on one thing and block out other things, we can not notice these lights if they're flickering. These lights are all flickering, fluorescent lights, very quickly. But if I'm hypersensitive visually, I would actually see the flicker.
And it would bug you, right?
It would bug me very badly, right? Even in taking the class, I realized I'm very sensitive to sound. I don't like a lot of extra noises. And I hear noises when they're happening. I'm still able to block out, what I need to block out most of the time. But during my class, there was a jackhammer happening and someone mowing the lawn.
I was here, wasn't it?
It wasn't here. It was in Camarillo, but I was like, I need to get up and like walk around and leave. It was really making me crazy. I couldn't focus on the lesson because of what was going on outside. And other people were just doing their work like nothing was happening.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it real quick and start recording again, just
Okay.
for in case my